Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? This is your boy Isaac.
And this is your boy Bryce.
And we are brothers on tennis. And guess what, everybody? We've got a special guest today. Look, this is the first time that we've actually had a guest on our show. And boy, oh boy, are we excited. Bryce, how excited are you to have a guest on our show, man?
I'm excited. I don't know how excited she is because she's probably thinking, how did these guys even get me on here? But we are blessed today to have Marsha Douglas joining us. And instead of us talking about Marsha, tell our audience, who are you?
Who you is, Marsha? Who you is?
Who am is? Oh boy. As you said, I'm Marsha Douglas. I'm a fan of Brothers on Tennis. I'm a fan of tennis. I love the game, and I'm looking forward to just talking to you guys about tennis tonight.
Well,
that is
definitely
awesome.
Makes us happy. That makes us very happy. We're happy to have you, Marsha. And we are just as much of a fan of the game as you are. We've attended a couple of events together. We've been to the U.S. Open together, and it's going to be extremely interesting, not only for us, but I think for our listening audience to understand a little bit more about you, your background in tennis, and just some of the nuances that you have. So Marsha, we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. And I guess our first question for you is just really about your personal history with the game of tennis. So how did you get introduced to tennis? Was it at a young age? Was it in your 20s? Give us your backstory. Let's hear from you.
Oh boy, you're trying to give away my age now. It was actually at a pretty young age. I was 6 or 7. I don't know the exact age, but I actually grew up in Jamaica, not Jamaica, Queens, Jamaica, the island. And I used to go to the tennis courts with my dad as a kid. And then he started teaching me tennis. He used to go out there to play with his friends. And then he would give me lessons after he was finished playing. I remember growing up, I had a little kitty-sized orange and black Andre Agassi signed racket that I used to carry everywhere with me. So that was how I started out. And then I kind of maintained it, throughout school, throughout high school. I played for my high school in Jamaica. I played regionals. We came the second at nationals when I played on the team. And then when I, came to the United States, I went to college here. I actually won, not boasting or anything, but I won the intramural tournament at school. And I just, continued playing. And, now I still play recreationally. And I love to watch the game and go to matches and things like that.
Well, Marsha, I believe your background is probably similar to a lot of our listeners. But what I think you have two maybe distinct differences though. And I'd like for you to probably talk about both of them. But the first one would be, I heard you talk about your dad
Right.
coaching you from when you were young. And obviously, as we've watched professional tennis, we've seen a lot of those cases, with Chris Everett and Coco Gauff and Serena and Venus Williams. What was your experience in terms of having a parent as a coach?
Oh boy. It was good and bad. It was great, to have a parent as a coach where, I could go play tennis at any point in time I wanted to. Or he could wake me up in the middle of the night and say, hey, we're going to the court to go play. Which did happen. Nighttime tennis is great. It's really good because, you have someone that's really invested in you as a player. I mean, I didn't go on to play professional tennis, but I did play competitively for my school, things like that. And, you have someone who, really does have a personal interest in you, pushing you to do better and, who knows your strokes intimately, knows your personality intimately. So, there's that bond, not only as a coach, but as a parent. Um, on the flip side, you know, when I didn't want to play, you know, there was a, oh, you're gonna play. um, and so, you know, that factored in. But I can see where, you know, as you said, a lot of the professional players or some of the, you know, the greats have been coached by parents. And I think that is a benefit to it. This, you know, 24/7 access to your coach. And, you know, I think the coaches probably are more invested in the player at that point. You know what I mean? It's not just a paycheck.
Right.
You know, that's your child. And if you want them to excel, there's that factor where they're just pushing you and pushing you. And I think it's really good. And you know, one thing I will say, you know, having my dad as my coach is that he showed me um different things that tennis could be for me, because a lot of times I wanted to quit or I didn't want to do it. And he said, well, you know, um, you could use this to get a scholarship, or, you know, you know, when you become a professional, it's good for networking, things like that. And I've seen where in my life that has benefited me. And I think that, you know, you might not get that from just someone that you pick up and pay off the street to coach you.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that makes
Such
a
a
lot of
great point.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do have a very particular question to ask you, Marsha, because
oh,
your father coached you and because
mhm.
of the fact that he also played tennis. Was there ever a point where you all played and you actually beat your dad? Because I've seen your game, so I would be surprised if you didn't. But I am very interested to know, did you ever play your father and did you actually beat
Uh, he might have stopped playing me when he realized it was going to happen.
him? Right? He was like, "Oh no, come on,
Oh no.
sweetie."
That's funny.
But yeah, and I mean, we're a very, you know, competitive family. So I will say that he's not, you know, when we used to play a lot, um, he was not holding back. So I had to be able to return, you know, return those serves, you know, and you know, that goes back to Agassi. He's one of my favorite players when I was younger. And I remember my dad always used to be like, step into that serve and return that serve like Agassi, you know? So these are things that have stuck with me throughout my tennis playing career, I guess.
That's funny. So the second part of my question was something that our listeners may not be able to relate to, that is part of your experience, as you
Mhm.
stated that you grew up in Jamaica. And so I'm very interested to understand, how is tennis perceived in Jamaica versus potentially in, you know, how you've seen it in the United States. You know, how is it for even maybe women playing in
Mhm.
Jamaica versus maybe some of the opportunities that women are given in the United States to play? So just very interested in what that experience is like.
Well, there are a few differences and there are also similarities, I would say. I mean, tennis, I think, is in Jamaica also perceived kind of as an elite sport. Um, you know, not everyone plays tennis. It's easy. I guess the parallel in the United States would be that it's easier for someone to get a basketball and go and shoot hoops as opposed to be able to have access to a tennis racket. But in Jamaica, a lot of people would have access to playing soccer, and that would be the main sport. And you know, it's perceived that the more well-to-do people would be the ones to play tennis. But as I was growing up, um, I saw where there are certain courts that I used to play at, which were, you know, closer to areas where um, there weren't people that were as well off. And I saw where there were programs that were encouraging kids, you know, from all walks of life to come to the game. And I could see where um, they were excelling at the game. You know, once given the opportunity, then they were excelling at the game. In terms of tennis as a national sport in Jamaica, I think, you know, we've had a couple tennis players like Douglas Burke, Peter Campbell, who are people who have, become ranked players and played professionally. But in terms of having a lot of people who have gotten to that level, that hasn't necessarily happened. And I think tennis is still growing as a sport on the island. So we still have much further to go. And I do believe that there are more programs now, more opportunities being presented to people now to participate in the sport. You talked about women in the sport. I think it's, I really don't think that there was much of a difference in terms of the access for women versus men, or girls versus boys playing the sport. I think it was more of a class structure as opposed to a gender structure, and I think that class structure is being diminished now as we go along.
That makes sense.
That's excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And so, Marcia, question for you, just in regards to when you actually, came to the States, and you said you actually started playing, on the collegiate side, and I guess my question for you is, as a woman of color, did you
Right.
experience any type of, uh, I guess, I don't know, were there any, I guess, barriers or constraints that you had to deal with as you came to the States and as you were playing tennis in what typically is considered to be kind of, again, that elite, more, white bread sport, if you will, early on? And I'm just interested to know if there was anything that you ended up encountering as you transitioned to the States and as you actually started playing competitively,
Um,
throughout your career.
well, I will say that I didn't play for my college. I participated in the intramurals. But
Okay.
but in terms of the transition from Jamaica to the US, I do know that I had a sense of, uh, a lot of times I got that question mark, like, oh, you could play tennis. And then when I like, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, just like you can. I can do that. um, but I think by the time I moved to the States, we were already in the era of being a Serena, and so people had already, you know, you know, gotten used to seeing women of color excelling in the sport. So what I did get a lot of was people calling me Serena. If I walk outside with a tennis racket now, it is inevitable that somebody will say, "Hey, Serena, what's going on?" And I mean, it happens without fail.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to some extent, that's a good thing because there's someone that women of color can identify with.
That's
And it's not
very
just her
true.
now. There are many women of color that are coming up now and excelling in the sport. And I think it's great. And um, so in terms of barriers, I think, they had started doing a lot of breaking down those barriers already. But, you still get that side eye from time to time, like, oh, you're here. All right, let's see what you can do.
I love
You
that kind
know.
of
Right.
side eye,
And
right?
Mhm.
then you put that backhand on them and
We're like, there you go.
Right?
now speaking of backhands, because I
Hmm.
see who you follow on Instagram,
Oh boy.
Mr. Stan Wawrinka.
All right.
Oh boy. Oh yes.
Tell us, who are some of your favorites, and you know how Isaac and I like to do, like based upon our website, we have
Hmm.
our favorite old school players, the kind of players we
Hmm.
followed as we were coming up, and then who
Hmm.
are your favorite new school players, the ones that are out there doing battle right now?
Well, you see, I follow Mr. Stan the man.
Yes.
Not only for not only for the back end, but he's kind of, pleasing to look at from time to time,
Uh-oh,
There's
uh-oh.
All right. Finish. Where we going?
but yes, I do admire the backhand. In terms of old school players, I think I've said Agassi's name like a ton of times since we've been talking. So I definitely was a fan. I think I got emotional when he retired at the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Um, but I loved watching him as a kid, the hair and the earring and the colorful clothing. And, he was just fun to watch. I think I was into Martina Hingis a little bit when I was younger. And then like Venus and Serena came on the scene and it was a wrap after that. I was like, all right.
Right.
About these girls right now. I mean, for a little Black girl, Venus and Serena being on the scene, I know we were wearing her hair in the braids with the beads and everything when they came out and started playing. So, they were a big influence. Presently, still a big Serena fan. I absolutely love Roger Federer. And I know, yes, I know there, people, who are staunch Federer fans, oftentimes don't like Rafa, but I also actually like Rafa. So if Federer is not playing, then I'll cheer for Rafa. I know he's coming dangerously close, to his Grand Slams, the titles, the figure, but
Right.
I still, I'm kind of like, it's too close for comfort, but, I still love Rafa. I think he, I like his personality off the court too. He seems like a great guy, and and I also like the younger players coming up too. Let's see, but I think those are my main players that I really follow and admire.
Well, you fit in very well with Isaac and I because those are pretty much the people that we follow as well. As I'm sure you know.
I knew I liked you guys.
Absolutely. I feel like we should ask you one of the polling questions. Do you think that Roger Federer is going to be able to catch Jimmy Connors as it relates to his tournament titles? Now, Roger's got 103 at this point. Jimmy's got 109. That makes him 6, maybe 7 out. Do you think he can catch him?
Most definitely.
There you go.
I mean, it's Roger.
Right.
But no, I think he's got some tournaments left in him. I think each year he comes back out and you're kind of afraid that, oh my God, is this going to be the year that he retires? But I think he's still fighting and he's still very competitive and he's up there, and I think he's going to make it. I think he will.
So Marsha, I want to get you to talk a little more about your playing style. How would you classify your game?
How would I classify my game? Aggressive.
Yeah.
I can witness to that.
As can I.
In all honesty, I don't even know how I would describe my game. I think, I love my two-handed backhand. Most people, when they watch me play, they're like, oh, I love your backhand. But I think nothing is quite as great as hitting like a sweet down the line forearm. It's great. It's a great feeling. But I think my game is, ground strokes are my strength, I believe. I don't like the net, but I love hitting heavy ground strokes, and I think just trying to get back what comes over the net at me and just having fun while doing it. That's how I would describe it.
I would describe it the same way too. Aggressive, great ground strokes, a really good feel for the ball, and I'm still mad at you hitting 2 forehands just past me like I didn't even flinch. I didn't even flinch for the ball.
Yes, audience, and I was there to witness it. That forehand was mean.
Well, that was fun. I didn't mean it.
Well, that clenched fist at the end says different. But
you have to have the theatrics with it, because then
That's right.
you have to entertain.
Right. And speaking of entertainment, now Marsha, I know you're in New York, and I know that you've got some U.S. Open. You've been to the U.S. Open. Talk to us about how long have you been going to the U.S. Open, your experience at the U.S. Open. Just give us a little detail around that, since that's sort of your, that's close to you there.
Right. Yes. So living in New York, um, I do have access to the tennis center, and I'm able to go to the US Open. And honestly, I've been in New York for quite a few years, and I regret not taking advantage of it sooner. It's so easy just to hop over there, even if it's not, to go to the ticketed games and the main draw when it starts, but to just go on the days when people are warming up or when they're playing qualifiers, which I feel like I've done that a couple years. So I've probably gone up to the tennis center probably uh, at least once each time over the past 6 years. And I've gone and watched qualifiers. I've just walked around the grounds, and it's a great feeling just being there with so many tennis fans, watching different matches. Um, I, one of my favorite matches that I watched at the U.S. Open was Roger Federer versus Tiafo, and that was a great. I believe it was a first round match.
It
And it
was,
was
yeah.
just it was and it was just amazing. Tiafo fought so hard in that match, and it was so competitive. I think people expected Federer to just get on the court and just be done with him, just wipe the court with him and walk away, but that was not the case. And it was, I know we were there pretty late that night, just
Oh, yeah.
watching that match go on, and I really enjoyed that. Um, and yeah, and so being at the Open is great. I've gotten to see different players, Martina Hingis and Rafa and Djokovic and Sharapova. I've seen some of them play matches. I've seen some of them training, and it's just a good feeling, being there. And
Absolutely.
So, Marsha, I'm going to add on to that question. What
okay.
tennis tournament or what tennis event
Mhm.
do you most want to attend that you have not yet?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are most welcome, sir. You are most welcome. uh, what tennis tournament? I think Wimbledon. Uh, and I think just because it's Wimbledon, the I didn't think about this before. I've never thought about this before, so now I'm thinking about it. And I think just the grandeur that is Wimbledon, and the
Right.
all white, and the just it kind of has a royal feel to it, it being in
Right.
England, it being where tennis was born. So I think that would be awesome to experience.
And you know what, Marsha? It's funny because most of my adult life, maybe even
Hmm.
as a kid, I would have had the same answer until recently.
Okay.
And now, to me, the event I most want to attend is the Laver
Mhm.
Cup.
Okay.
Right.
And why is
Yeah, I,
that?
I I just think, to me personally, and I've mentioned this on our podcast before,
Hmm.
it is just simply the most exciting tournament of the year. The
Okay.
format of it,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
level of players that they have that participate in it,
Right.
the camaraderie you see between players that you typically don't see that type of
Right.
camaraderie between them.
Right.
I just think it's a special event.
That is true. That does make sense. I mean, I know I saw, recently, during the Labor Cup when like I believe Rafa was coaching Roger at some point, I think.
Yeah,
Right. That's right.
That's just like a moment that you wouldn't get anywhere else, and that's just
right,
perfect. So that is true. That is true. I don't think I'm going to change my answer,
right.
but that's a good second. Yes, that's a good second.
And
So,
hopefully they will
Marsha,
pick up on our idea in order to do an Althea Gibson Cup for the women, because to me, I also
Right.
feel like that
Hmm.
definitely needs to be happening on the women's side as well. Because again,
Right.
that
Right.
format is really great. So, right
that
on,
would be
Marcia.
awesome. That would be
Right.
That
awesome
would
if they
be
did that.
amazing. That might go to number one if it happens. See?
See, exactly.
So
So Marsha,
Marsha, oh,
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
go ahead, bro.
Isaac.
Okay. Marsha, I need to dig into this question just a little bit further. So you mentioned that one of your favorites was Martina
Mhm,
Hingis. And I'm going to be honest with you. That was
mhm.
surprising to me, only
Okay.
because I have seen you play. I've seen your aggressive style. I've seen your ground strokes. And it seems like
Mhm.
Martina Hingis's game is all of the opposite of that. She is really soft and she's all about kind of
Mhm,
massaging the ball
mhm,
around,
mhm, mhm.
and all of that. So I am curious as to how she became your favorite and what were the things that you, I guess, tried to take from her or emulate from her, or if anything. I'm
Mm.
curious.
Okay, okay. Well, you see, that was when I was young and before I appreciated the aggression.
Okay.
But no, I think I did, you know, I did appreciate just the finesse and, being able to play and, the placement, things like that. And and I think one of the reasons why I liked her too is because, she started winning things pretty young. So when I was younger, that was someone to look at and say, oh, look at this person who's not too much older than I am, winning these tournaments. And so I think that was mainly the reason why she was someone that I used to look up to and appreciate as a player.
Right.
But in terms of style of play, I think as I matured in my tennis game, I began to appreciate more of an aggressive, hard hitting game of tennis.
And Marsha, I totally get where you're coming from. I was a big Martina Hingis fan, although it was nothing about her game that I tried to emulate in my own game, but you just had to appreciate the mastery that she
Mm-hmm.
had, the touch, I mean, like you said, she was 16 years old, 17, I mean, and just absolutely outthinking and
Right.
outmaneuvering everybody she played. And to be very honest with you, it really wasn't until, and I guess we can say when Serena and Venus came on board and they just literally overpowered her. I still don't think
Exactly.
I still don't think Venus and Serena came out and they outthought Martina
No.
Hingis,
Hmm.
but they just had a power that she physically could not
Didn't have.
match. Right. But
Right.
when you talk about just the brain and the thoughts and the angles and the touch, and there was nobody like her that could do
Right.
that, and she was doing it at such a young age.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, that's precisely, why I appreciated her as a player. It was, she was doing that. She had the mental toughness for the game, and she had it at such a young age, which made her a champion.
Yeah, yeah,
That's right. That's right. She dominated for that spell. That's for sure. When she was 16, I think she won
Right.
what, 3 Grand Slams in that one year?
yeah,
Yes, sir. She was like, "Look, this my year."
Hmm. Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
So, Marsha,
Yes.
we're going to wrap this up, and we so
Okay.
appreciate you coming on and being our first guest on
Yes.
Brothers on Tennis,
Whoop,
and
whoop.
to show we're more than about the brothers, we're about the sisters as well.
Good,
Um,
good. I like this. I'm
I
happy to be the
want to.
first sister on the show.
Right.
Right.
And hopefully it's not the last because I know we're going to need a guest co host sometime in the future.
Oh boy.
So
Oh yeah. Come on
I'm
now.
going to put you on the hook right here on the
Oh my
show.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
But
Um,
I want to give you an opportunity if there's any last thoughts that you want to share about your history with the game, your thoughts on the current game, anything you'd like to share with our listeners. Have at it.
oh boy, last thoughts. Well, first off, I do want to say thank you for having me on this, on the show. It's great just talking to you about my experience playing tennis and um, just my love for the game and the players that I love. Um, in terms of just me and tennis, I will say that it's been a big part of my life. It's something that I've had since I was young, and it's stuck with me throughout my life. And I think it's provided me with as I've said, a networking tool, which is not something that I would have ever thought about before. I'm here speaking to you, lovely gentlemen, um, and, it's such a wonderful thing to share with so many people. And, I hope to continue to share it with you guys and listen to Brothers in Tennis.
Thank you so much, Marsha, and once again,
Right.
Isaac. Any final words from you?
Yeah, she called us lovely gentlemen.
I know.
Incredible. All right.
I think
Did
she
I
was
just
talking
blow my
about
credibility?
you. That is too funny.
No,
So,
Marsha, it's awesome. We just thank you, and it has been, in my opinion, just a wonderful, wonderful episode having you on, and we just thank you for making time to do this with us. So thank you from me.
yes.
Thank you so much.
So, listeners, look forward to hearing Marsha again as she replaces either Isaac or myself on a future episode. But we will continue to give you more special episodes where you'll get to see different levels and different perspectives of the game of tennis. And with that, we're going to sign off. This is your boy, Bryce.
This is your boy, Isaac.
And for our dear friend, Marsha, we are Brothers on Tennis. Have a wonderful week, everyone.